Hello everyone, I'm Lisa Perez and I'm UX Research Lead at Futurelearn, and I need to use the clicker. Let's see. Nope. There we go. If you haven't heard of Futurelearn, we do online courses from universities and professional organizations around the world. We started 5 years ago. We did around 700 courses on the platform last year and have over 7 million learners. We've been around for about 5 years, and we've got 100 people, roughly 100 people working out of our offices in Camden. On the left in the blue, this is the UX and design team. And on the right, these are the 5 product teams that we support, all of which are working Agile. Now, notice one thing. There are 5 product teams, and there are 5 product designers. So that's great. That works really well, and they're all embedded in the teams, and they work Agile. However, there are only 2 UX research people. So that's a kind of difficult ratio if you want to get a lot of research done. So I started at Futurelearn in October as a maternity leave cover. And this, by the way, is our lovely research lab. The way things were working is we had a very useful program of ongoing foundational research that was working really well. But to work with the product teams was a quarterly planning process. And we'd meet with them every quarter and decide understand what they needed and decide to what level of engagement we were able to work with them. And then to put this into a plan, there were long briefs involved, various meetings, and then eventually research would happen, and eventually results would be produced. And this was largely running pretty well. I mean, research was very well embedded in the organization. It was very well received. But after a couple of months, once I really got into this, I noticed a few issues. First of all, I couldn't believe the long lead times to get insight. From the time anyone decided they wanted some research to the time they actually had some results that they could act on could take many, many weeks. And maybe it's because I came from an agency, but this just struck me as insanely long. And it made me worry about whether we were producing enough value. But also, consequently, because of these long lead times, there was an awful lot of surveys happening because they could be done by the product teams with minimal involvement from research, and they could be done quickly. Far too many surveys. And there was an awful lot of A/B tests because people needed to feel more confident about their design decisions. And then, again, that was a way of doing it within a sprint. And unfortunately, most of these A/B tests were inconclusive. So to me, that was a real sign that they needed more insight from actual users. And basically, we needed to find a way of being agile. But with only 2 people, how were we going to do this? Fortunately, agile processes were very well embedded within the product teams already. So what I figured we needed to do was to focus on these 3 things. First of all, continuous delivery. We needed to do a lot more research, but in much smaller chunks and much more often. Now, of course, if you're going to do more of one thing and you're already busy, you have to do less of something else. So what we were doing less of is deliverables. We needed to get out of the deliverables business. And in order to do that, that linked in with working together with the product managers and the product designers to understand and interpret the research results that we produced. So that shared understanding turned out to be probably the most important thing that we did of all of that, and that was the key to making it work, is really partnering with the product teams, with the product designers and the product managers, so that everybody understood what was happening and what the insights were coming out of the research actually were. So this all felt like a lot of change to be attempting this, so we positioned it as an experiment. So for January and February, we planned research days every 2 weeks in January and February. And by a research day, I mean this is a day when we get learners in the lab or on the phone for international learners. And we didn't know what we were going to test, but we put them in the diary and told everybody about it, and it was really a bit of a leap of faith. It was a case of, if we build it, they'll come, hopefully. And then the other thing was we insisted that each product team that was going to test something provided a note taker and an observer for all the sessions. And we arranged collaborative write-ups and wash-ups at the end of every session, at the end of the following day. And then we used our library, set up a Trello board to make better use of the existing research and to publicize it. So after 2 months, we went back to the teams and asked them how it was going, and it worked really, really well. Even though we were actually asking the product managers for more work in this collaborative write-up process, they felt it was really valuable work, and it was work that they thought was really important, and it meant that they got research results in 2 days, not 2 weeks. Also, every 2 weeks was too much for us. We just couldn't cope with it. So we realized that going forward, we were going to do it maybe every 3 weeks, sometimes every 4 weeks even. And the results are more accessible. So the feedback was, great, let's do more. And the key thing for me was now to operationalize this process, because research ops is definitely a thing, even in a small team, and we had to find a way to do this very efficiently. So that's one thing that I've been working on, is how to do the recruitment more efficiently. We definitely need a panel, and how to make it all work for everybody in a very smooth way. So if anybody has any questions, comments, or advice, definitely come and talk to me. Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, my question was, how did you come together in panel so rapidly?
Yes, so you're asking about how we got the research panels, how we did the recruiting?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we really do want to set up a panel, but right now we would just email the users that we had in the London area and say, would you mind coming in? We got tremendous response, much, much bigger than we expected. People were really, really happy to come talk to us without even that much incentive. And in fact, people were kind of upset if we didn't choose them, so we had to be quite careful about that. But going forward, we do absolutely want to create a panel, and I think it's going to be all the more important with GDPR, because people have to opt in to receiving notifications of research. So while we still expect to see high response rates to that, we'll have a potentially smaller pool of people to draw from.